Achilles, the greatest warrior in the Trojan War, was not just a hero, he was a symbol of strength, pride, and deep sorrow. Born to the sea goddess Thetis and King Peleus, Achilles' life was intertwined with the tragic fate. From a young age, Thetis knew that her son's destiny would be full of pain, so she dipped Achilles into the river Styx to grant him immortality. However, with her hand tightly gripping his heel, the only spot on his body left untouched by the sacred waters was his Achilles' heel, which became his fatal weakness. The Trojan War erupted like a storm when Paris, the prince of Troy, with a soft but ambitious heart, kidnapped Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world and wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta. This event stirred the pride of all Greeks, causing them to rise and prepare for war. Under the command of King Agamemnon, the Greek forces marched to Troy, and Achilles, with a heart full of fervor, led the mighty army. In the early years of the war, Achilles became a nightmare for the Trojans. Every strike of his sword not only brought death, but also reminded of the brutality of war. His fame spread like wildfire, making both the Greeks and their enemies respect and fear him. However, the brilliance of his glory was overshadowed by internal conflict. In a great battle, Agamemnon took a beautiful slave woman named Briseis, whom Achilles cherished. When Achilles learned that Agamemnon had taken Briseis, a wave of fury surged within him. He felt robbed not only of his prize, but also of his dignity as a warrior. Deciding to withdraw from the war, Achilles retreated into the darkness of solitude, leaving the Greeks in a difficult situation. While Achilles sat in silence, pain and regret gnawed at his mind. The Greeks faced defeat after defeat under the might of the Trojans. Time passed, and the sorrow became an unhealed wound. Suddenly, a wave of sadness and tension swept over when Patroclus, Achilles' closest friend, could no longer watch the Greeks being slaughtered without the help of their strongest hero. Patroclus, with a heart full of concern and compassion, entered Achilles' tent and begged to wear his legendary armor. He knew that by merely taking on the form of Achilles, the Greeks would regain their confidence, like a ray of hope in the darkness of war. Achilles, still consumed by his anger and personal pride, could not resist the pleas of his beloved friend. He gave Patroclus the armor, a symbol of strength and glory, but with a warning not to engage Hector, their greatest enemy. As Patroclus donned Achilles' armor and mounted his steed, his figure transformed into that of the great hero himself. On the battlefield, the weary Greek soldiers suddenly felt revitalized at the sight of Achilles. Roars of excitement erupted, hope surged, and they felt as though victory was within reach. They didn't need to see the face beneath the helmet. The sight of that majestic figure alone was enough to inspire pride and fighting spirit. The Greek forces surged into the Trojan ranks with renewed zeal, while the enemy, confused by the unexpected return of Achilles, faltered. But then, cruel fate struck again. As Patroclus pushed too far, beyond the limits Achilles had warned him of, he encountered Hector, the strongest warrior of Troy. Hector, with cold eyes and a heart full of determination, realized that this Achilles was not who he seemed. Despite wearing Achilles' armor, Patroclus did not possess the superhuman strength or combat experience of his friend. In a brief yet tragic moment, Hector delivered a fatal blow, piercing through Patroclus' body. The battlefield seemed to pause as the clash of weapons and cries of battle faded away. Patroclus collapsed, his eyes filled with pain and regret. In his final moments, he realized that he had not only fallen at the hands of Hector, but had also failed to keep his promise to Achilles, the friend he so dearly respected and loved. The death of Patroclus on the battlefield marked not only the loss of a dear friend, but also the beginning of Achilles' unstoppable fury, heralding a period of tragedy and bloody vengeance. Returning to battle, Achilles resembled an enraged god. He charged into the enemy ranks with unprecedented strength and ferocity. Each swing of his sword brought death and served as retribution for Patroclus. The Trojans trembled before the sight of an unstoppable warrior. However, all Achilles longed for was a confrontation with Hector, the man who had taken the life of his beloved friend. The duel between Achilles and Hector was tense and dramatic. Although Hector was a skilled warrior, he could not match Achilles' extraordinary strength. Finally, when Hector fell, his death not only brought satisfaction to Achilles, but also profound pain and tragedy. In a fit of rage, Achilles dragged Hector's body around the walls of Troy, an act filled with contempt that also reflected the deep anguish within him. But would this act of hatred anger the gods? Achilles had crossed the line of humanity by desecrating Hector's noble body, a warrior under the protection of the gods. This act of disrespect incited the wrath of the gods, particularly Apollo. Even in victory and with vengeance complete, Achilles was unaware that his tragic fate awaited him. According to later legends, Achilles knew his death was near. An arrow shot by Paris, the prince of Troy, was not merely by chance, but guided by Apollo himself. The arrow flew straight into Achilles' heel, the only vulnerable spot on his body. The anger of Apollo over Hector's death directly led to Achilles' downfall. He fell like a defeated god, not because of weakness, but because of the cruel fate decreed by the gods. Achilles' death left a massive void in the hearts of the Greeks. They eventually won the Trojan War through the cunning use of the Trojan horse, but the name Achilles remained etched deeply in the minds of both friends and foes alike. He became a symbol of strength, courage, and tragedy, a testament to the limits of humanity before destiny and the gods. Though an invincible hero, Achilles was still just a man, powerful, yet unable to escape the fragility of fate. His journey is a lesson about friendship, vengeance, and the sorrow that war brings, a story that will forever live in the hearts of generations to come.